Euromaxx highlights. Coming up on the show, wish you were here. People have been sending postcard greetings for around 140 years. Down to earth, we visit Germany's finest vegetable garden. Out to win, presenting a young lady who plays the bagpipes like the best of them. Euromaxx highlights, and here's your host, Karin Helmstedt.
Greetings from Berlin and a warm welcome to our highlights edition. Well, any left-handers out there among you will certainly know what Geza Lozo means when he says he simply got tired of driving on the wrong side of the road. The Hungarian-born pianist is left-handed, and for years his dream was to have a piano custom-made to meet the needs of his dominant hand. Well, Leipzig piano makers Blüthner built the instrument for 42,000 euros, and now Lozo is reaching out to all aspiring left-handers to put their music into the right perspective.
It's not unusual to hear piano music coming through an open window. But look through the window and you'll see something surprising. To the left, a normal grand piano. To the right, one that's a reverse copy. The keyboard is a mirror image because the lower notes are usually on the left, not the higher notes. Geza Lozo had his left-handed piano built in 2001. So far, the only one in the world.
It's a completely different feeling, sensitivity. With everything that I play now, I get the same good feeling that I had when I was a child.
There are 3 children in the Lozo family. All 3 are left-handed, like their father. All 3 play the piano, and they all practice on the specially made instrument.
Yes, on the left-handed piano, I find it easier to manage the keyboard.
I can play better, even the melody, and I find it easier.
The technique is good too. Now I can learn things by heart, practice pieces much faster and more precisely, and I can perform even difficult passages better and more correctly.
A left-handed piano alone is not much use because all sheet music is written for right-handed performers. But now there is sheet music for left-handers as well. The pianist has rewritten a lot of piano pieces, about 200 so far, and founded his own left-handed publishing firm in Trier, in Western Germany. He had to develop his own system. It's very time-consuming in spite of computers.
Well, of course, it depends on the piece. Chopin, a nocturne, can take about 2 to 3 hours. But of course, for the ordinary student, for beginners, lower level, middle level, then I can work much faster. It all depends on the length of the piece.
The well-known Für Elise by Ludwig van Beethoven. The right hand usually plays the melody, but with the Lozo system, most of the notes are mirror images. This is the original with the melody on top, and the left-handed version with the melody below. Although it's easier, Lozo had some persuading to do.
I expected a great deal from the left-handers, that a lot of them would sign up and sit and play the instrument. But left-handers in particular are difficult to persuade, mainly because they had to learn in such a difficult and cramped way. It was usual to do it right-handed.
All the same, he's already teaching 10 students with his left-handed notation. Unlike a normal piano, the keyboard on an electric piano can be easily reversed with a piece of equipment costing about 100 euros. On average, average, the students take about 2 months to get used to the new notation.
I've noticed I have much more power of expression with my left hand.
Father and daughter on the left-handed grand piano. Now the world of music is the right way around for them. And perhaps Geza Loso has made musical history with his new notation. And the L for Loso will become a trademark for talented musicians who just happen to be left-handed.
And back the right way round. Well, no doubt many of you have received a postcard or two in the mail over the summer. That's a custom that's been going on here in Germany since the year 1870. Germans send and receive some 63 million postcards each year, and in a place like Britain, they keep the postal service busy with some 135 million. Well, now the Folkwang Museum in the German city of Essen is hosting an exhibition of postcards through the ages, and they conclude that despite the onslaught of other media, the postcard prevails.
138 years of the postcard. This is one of the first ever printed in Germany. Not long afterwards, the plain cardboard began to be printed with an image on the front. Many are on display at the Frankierte Fantastereien exhibit at the Museum Folkwang in Essen. Picture postcards like these helped popularize photography in the years before the illustrated press and picture books became commonplace, and they were a huge success.
8 million postcards were sent in 1899. By 1900, that number had already increased to 52 million. And 600 million postcards were mailed from 1905 to 1906. We have reports from French post offices that were completely overwhelmed by the deluge of cards.
The new postcards opened up whole new worlds, imaginary images of travel by air, by sea, and by land. Technological progress became available to everyone through the deceptively real images recorded against the backdrop of the photo studio. During the 1920s, there was a booming business in photographic illusions.
Of course, industry at the time was aware of these developments, and so companies began to print paper that was a bit thicker, pre-cut into postcard format. Photographers and amateurs used these cards to print their own images directly onto the specially prepared paper.
Amateur photographers were amazingly inventive, a headless man or two at once. They played with mirrors, montage, and dual exposure. And soon artists began to use postcards as a canvas for their own work, like these by American artist Man Ray.
Many of the artists who designed large print runs of postcards often came up with special postcard designs that reflected their own visual language and artistic signature.
Here at the exhibit in Essen is a postcard entitled April Fool by Pablo Picasso, and another called The Triumph of Love by Max Ernst. Salvador Dali designed the Melancholy series for his dogs, cards too lovely to send in the mail. One artist who was more interested in the back of the postcard than the front was German writer Georg Becker. In the mid-1990s, Georg Becker filled these brightly colored postcards with warm, witty, and inventive stories for his son Johnny.
Dear Johnny, you old pirate fire-stuck sheriff, when an elephant gets onto a double-decker bus, then the passengers have to squeeze together to make room. What do you think? Does the elephant need to buy 1 ticket, or maybe 2? Or even 10? And does he have any money on him? Do you see his wallet? Your papa.
Whether in literature, art, or daily life, the postcard has left its traces everywhere, and the images are endless in their variety. Nowadays, news from friends on the road is as likely to arrive via mobile phone or email. With these new moving images, it really is almost like being there. But in spite of the digital competition, the postcard is still alive and well. After all, it's not just a souvenir. It's a memory that lasts.
Well, his works are much bigger than a postcard, and with an interesting philosophy, Berlin-based artist Anselm Reyle has singled himself out on Germany's contemporary art scene. A visit to his studio in this city's Kreuzberg district might remind you of Andy Warhol's factory, with a team of artists working to churn out his works at a rate that's almost dizzying. Whether or not this coincides with your accepted ideas of art, the works do fetch stellar prices, and we were the first to get a look at his operation in action.
Berlin artist Anselm Reyle uses heavy metal music for inspiration. His trademark, garish colours that no one else would combine the way he does.
I take a look at a color and ask, what color can it not be combined with? And that's usually my starting point, because I find that more interesting than creating harmony. Harmony is very simple.
Reile's art isn't only brightly coloured, it's also multifaceted. Along with murals, he makes sculptures and installations. They're extremely popular with collectors. Some of his works have sold for more than 300,000 euros. To meet demand, Reyle has assistants carry out much of the work on his pieces.
I employ 3 or 4 times as many people as I did just a year ago. But the number of works moving out of the studio are no more than a year or 2 ago. Most of the stuff here is still in the development stage.
These days, 50 people work in Reile's studio, many of them with regular full-time contracts. A whole department is devoted to acquiring materials, because the starting point for Reile's sculptures is often such banal objects as Gothic candle holders or kitsch from the flea market.
These are all potential sculptures, but it's not easy to find a good form. What I want is the perfect sculpture, and that means we rework them so that they're absolutely right, geometrically speaking.
Then they're enlarged, cast in bronze and sprayed with car paint. Reile's studio extends over a huge 2,000 square meters. In one of its rooms, his employees can go wild. Here they produce what he calls material pictures. He wants works to come into being by chance.
It's better than if I did everything myself from the start, because that would mean everything would be consciously steered. That's boring. If I can do something from the start, sometimes something emerges, or even better, 20 or 30 things emerge, and then you can respond to them once more.
Here, not only the artistic assistants, but also people from other departments, such as architects and structural engineers, can try their hand.
There are few studios this size in Berlin, or anywhere. I think the biggest difference with Anselm is that the people work as equals and give their own creative input.
It's a lot of fun working here. I'm an artist myself, and it's simply very exciting to experience how the whole thing operates. That's it.
Staff members experiment with clay. If Anselm Reyle finds a shape interesting, he may later cast a bronze sculpture of it. But not everything is worth saving. The artist destroys up to 2/3 of all the experiments.
That doesn't matter, it's clear from the beginning that this is how we work. Doing a lot so that everything's in flow, and then later select and achieve a kind of precision.
Finally, the works are cast in aluminium and chrome-plated. The studio produces up to 150 of them a year. Reyle originally trained to be a landscape gardener and only later studied art. He's still astonished at his own success.
I consider myself an artist, not an entrepreneur. This is all developed almost into a company, but that was never my intention. It was the work that led to all of this.
A picture can weigh up to 250 kilos when it leaves Anselm Reile's studio. The works go directly to galleries or collectors, or to Reile's next exhibition, which opens in a gallery in Brussels this October.
And now to greener pursuits in Darmstadt, Germany, where in the 18th century, Prince Georg Wilhelm von Hessen-Darmstadt once planted this country's most elegant kitchen garden. It boasts about 100,000 plants, many of which are fruits and vegetables, and they are flourishing in newly restored Baroque splendor.
A gateway to another time. This garden takes us back 200 years. Geometric, beautiful, and useful. Carefully laid out in rows, fruit and vegetables adorn the Prince Georg Garden in Darmstadt. The setting is Baroque. Stefan Jagenteufel has designed the grounds following historic examples, as they were at the end of the 18th and beginning of the 19th centuries.
The idea was to create beautiful arrangements, pleasing to the eye of anyone strolling through the garden. Not just summer flowers, but also vegetable plants. It's so thrilling because it comes together and makes sense. Normally when you plant lettuce, it doesn't matter if they're red or green, but here in this diagonal pattern, it looks so special.
Apart from the 70,000 ornamental plants, 40,000 useful plants also divide the beds all year round. Stefan Jagenteufel has planted some 40 different apple and pear trees in the Prince Georg Garden, many of which were known in the 18th century. This variety of red mangold also dates back to this time, as does the castor oil plant, then used as a laxative. Fruit and vegetables, both historic and decorative.
This is an artichoke that we've allowed to flower. It's no longer edible in this condition. It's just here for its beauty.
The species-rich garden attracts many visitors. Some come to look and learn.
When we see how beautifully the artichokes are growing, we can explain, look, we don't eat the flowers, but we can eat the rest. And plums and pears and apples are growing here. It's wonderful.
The vegetables in the Prince Georg Garden are not merely for decoration, they're harvested as well. Regular customers can make their choice fresh from the garden. Lettuce is the real favorite. Up to 100 heads are sold a day at 60 cents each.
It's marvelous to buy produce here. It's on my way to work, and I like to take it with me. This is organic lettuce, and very inexpensive, which is a bonus. Besides, I love the setting.
Jagenteufel uses 18th century plans as a template for his restructuring designs. When the state of Hessen commissioned him to take over the garden in 1990, it looked very different, bourgeois and conventional. The Master Garden wants to change it to how Prince Georg Wilhelm von Hessen-Darmstadt once had it laid out. Geometric, typical of the Baroque era, and practical. A place where beauty is combined with usefulness and playfulness. A pleasure garden.
This garden was always very intimate. That's what's most appealing about it, the variety and the intimacy. The Landgraves used to hold theatrical parties here. They played music and could free themselves from courtly manners.
With this in mind, Jagenteufel has reconstructed a hedge theater on this historic site. Once again, as in the old days, they put on theatrical and musical performances here. Once the visitors have gone, the head gardener often sits in his favorite place outside the restored garden house. From here, he has a magnificent view of the grounds that he's spent 10 years restoring.
It's like walking through a historical painting. This is what it looked like 200 years ago. It's art and culture people can still enjoy today. That's so exciting.
When the gates of the Prince Georg Garden close in the evening, time stands still. In the 18th century, a pleasure garden that is both useful and romantic.
Well, I think just about anyone with an iota of Scottish blood in their veins can't help but swoon when they hear the sound of the bagpipes. It's a difficult instrument and one that was traditionally played only by men. In fact, just a few centuries ago, women caught playing it could be punished by having their fingers cut off. Well, thankfully, traditions have changed since then, and we found one young piper who's calling her own tune with great success.
Emma Buchen is an unusual talent in every sense of the word. She's considered one of Scotland's most gifted young pipers. With every appearance, she's earned renewed respect from her male colleagues, but she's had to fight prejudice in the past.
Older male pipers certainly a bit more stuck in their ways, thinking that girls shouldn't be playing the pipes or we're not as good or whatever. I have had comments before. A judge once said, me and another guy actually were tied for first place in a competition. The judge said, I'm going to give the boy the prize because he's a boy.
But Emma has been completely accepted by her fellow band members. She's the only woman in the 23-member ensemble. After she's tuned her instrument and starts to play, even the most critical listeners fall silent, realizing that she is just as much in control of her pipes as her male colleagues. When she's not actually rehearsing with the band, she likes to visit the National Piping Centre, a museum and music school in downtown Glasgow. The young musician is fascinated by the history of bagpipes, even though history offers few female role models, which is why Emma Buchen's idol is her former teacher, Margaret Dunn. Nearly a third of her pupils are now girls.
The level that she's reached today is really high. She's competed with a Grade 1 band, which is really impressive for somebody that's only 19, and she'll definitely be one of the top solo pipers to come. I really hope to qualify from the academy and be a high school music teacher, and I also want to one day be the pipe major of my own Grade 1 band. Don't know how that'll go right enough, but that's my future aims.
A young musician who has set herself a tough challenge. But who knows? Maybe Emma Buchen will be marching through Glasgow with her own band one day.
And if by chance you'd like to watch any of those reports again, you can now find our Highlights edition on YouTube at the address that you see blended in below on your screen. Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of our Highlights. Thanks for joining us, and until we meet again, ciao and bye-bye.